Deep in the western highlands of Hyrule stands Satori Mountain. Covered in apple trees that sprout gold apples and cherry blossoms, this mountain, as many of you know, is home to the Lord of the Mountain, Satori. Named after legendary developer Satoru Iwata, this creature is a nature deity that has been alive since before the time of the Calamity, depicted on Sheikah runes around Hyrule Castle's sanctum. It appears to exist somewhere between the higher gods like Din, Faroe, and Nehru, and above lesser spirits like the fairies and blupees. Blupees then are small rabbit-like spirits who drop rupees when shot with an arrow, and in Tears of the Kingdom they serve an even bigger role. For a full recap on the Lord of the Mountain, I recommend Zeltic's video, but the main thing I want to talk about is this. In the Hyrule Compendium, it tells us Satori is the reincarnation of an ancient sage, no longer a citizen of Hyrule, but now it is a creature that serves as a protector of nature, with various spirits working in conjunction with him. Yes, the blupees, as I mentioned before, but in Tears of the Kingdom, there's a new creature that's appeared, and Dr. Wily and I want to expand on this topic and dig deep into these mysterious amphibians, the Bubbulfrogs.
The Bubbulfrogs can be found in the caves that have opened up all over Hyrule as part of the upheaval. Outside each cave, a blupee will lead Link deep inside to encounter this creature. Much like the blupee dropping rupees, a single arrow is all it takes to make the Bubbulfrog drop a bubble gem, and as it ascends, a blupee is freed from within. They share similar design traits to Satori and blupees, suggesting that they are part of the same family of spirits. Similar to how the fairies and great fairies, depending on the game, look similar. Speaking of great fairies, they, in Tears of the Kingdom, use rupees to fuel their magic in upgrading armor. This is a long-running trend in the Zelda series, with rupees being a source of magical energy, and fairies using them to enhance weapons or armor. In both Twilight Princess and The Wind Waker, the magic armor seems to run off this rupee energy, protecting Link from attacks only when Link has rupees, and expending them as time passes. If this is the case, then perhaps blupees are finding rupees in the world and bring them to Satori so that he might enhance his magic. If so, this could be why he needs the blupees to be free of their new Bubbulfrog form, so that they can continue to bring the Lord of the Mountain rupees from across the land. However, blupees can't do this alone. They need the help from a bow wielder like Link.
To this end, should you make an offering to a frog statue in the overworld of a golden apple found again on Satori Mountain, then Satori will appear and shine a light on nearby caves where Bubbulfrogs are, guiding Link to help the local blupees find and free their friends. It's interesting to note then that this toad form that the blupees take, and the fact that the altars that you should offer these apples to are also frogs, can't be overlooked. These frog shrines are plentiful across the world of Hyrule, most commonly associated with the Sheikah and Yiga, who dress the frogs with their eyes. Sheikah culture goes back over 10,000 years to the beginning of Hyrule, meaning amphibian-like beings have always held some place amongst the Zelda deities. We've seen this before throughout Hyrule's history, with dragons and whales both appearing as deities across time and across the legends, but it seems also so too do frogs. In Phantom Hourglass, CYLOS is a guardian of winds in the Dream World's sea. In Majora's Mask, Don Garo is the leader of a frog-croaking orchestra, and music in Zelda has always been tied to communication with the gods, whether that's like using the Windfish items or the Ocarina of Time, or of course the Baton of the Wind Waker, which summons the frog deities most similar to the Bubbulfrogs, Zephos and Cyclos.
Zephos and Cyclos live on Dragon Roost Island, which is currently the home of the Rito, but was once the home of the Goron people when it was still Death Mountain. The island they live on has two altars, one to Zephos and one to his brother Cyclos, who, after his altar had gone uncared for, began to cause destructive cyclones across the Great Sea. These beings are the only ones in the game who appear as sub-deities alongside Valoo, the Great Deku Tree, and Jabun, but as neither is a guardian or spiritual stoneholder, they seem to be somewhat lesser, like the Queen of Great Fairies. They have a similar status as the Lord of the Mountain. Not quite a main god, but certainly a powerful being. Another comparison can be made to the Bubbulfrogs, as the way to handle Cyclos is by using a bow and arrow, and the design of the Bubbulfrogs and Zephos can of course not be overlooked. This and the fact that these frog statues in the world are tens of thousands of years old, with some important depictions of toads going back to Skyward Sword, suggests that creatures like this have always existed.
Kilton is a strange merchant who's obsessed with monsters, and so too is his brother Colton, who wants the bubble gems because he believes that he will become Satori if he consumes enough of the gems. Once you're done trading him these gems, he does in fact transform, but not into Satori, who was of course an ancient sage, but instead to a mere bloopee. It's suggesting that powerful creatures like Satori must come from powerful people, and creatures like the Bubbulfrogs and blupees, and perhaps even CYLOS and Zephos, were once other people who went through some kind of transformation, backing up the compendium entry about Satori being a powerful sage. And actually, and here's where we get into the absurd Zelda territory here, I got really speculative and was thinking about who might have transformed themselves into CYLOS and Zephos in the Wind Waker, and there actually is a species that looks kinda similar to these frogs, which are of course the GORONS, who will mostly exist in the time of Wind Waker. Their home in Ocarina of Time was Death Mountain, which in Wind Waker's age is Dragon Roost Isle, where CYLOS and Zephos live, but this is a complete side note and I can't really find too much to tie into this. The Don Goro mask was originally worn by a Goron, but I have nowhere else to go with this. Maybe you can come up with an absurd Zelda theory of your own in the comments. Still, the point stands that it seems that mortals can become immortals in the forms of these spirits and creatures in the world of Zelda. Perhaps this is also how fairies and great fairies came about, another set of kind of lesser spirits, and a connection to them can be seen in Tears of the Kingdom's magic armor. The magic armor in this game is given to you by Kilton in exchange for these bubble gems, and you can see it clearly takes design elements from Satori. It looks like the Lord of the Mountain, and much like the Lord of the Mountain himself, uses rupees to fuel its defenses, in the same way that Satori uses rupees to fuel magic. It's as if whoever designed this armor studied the creature closely. Possibly this is Cece, the fashionista of Hateno Village, who has also designed a hat that both matches the magic armor, but also takes inspiration from the great fairies around the world, who, once again, use rupees to bolster their magic. I also don't think it's a total coincidence that Cece's hat is covered in mushrooms, and what is another name for mushrooms if not a toadstool? Is it toads? So, you know, big connection there.
Toby, really get to the point already.
The main point, of course, is this, that the power of Satori, as well as its kind of structure, having lesser spirits that work below it, as well as its ability to use rupees as magic, is not too dissimilar to the great fairies who have fairies below them. I also fully believe that the other frog deities across the Zelda lore may well be the result of other creatures or peoples transforming, and it may go back a long time. It is also interesting to note that Satori Mountain in Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom and the home of CYLOS and Zephos in Wind Waker are close to those games' respective homes for the Ritos. Now, in Wind Waker, the Rito is the Earth Sage who's the descendant of the fish, so it doesn't make a lot of sense there. But in Tears of the Kingdom, the Rito represent the elements of wind and the Sage of Wind. It's possible that in Wind Waker, the sages are all kind of mixed up as a result of the Great Flood, but once there was a Sage of Wind who lived within the Rito village. And much how like this ancient sage for Satori was potentially once the Sage of Winds, that would make sense too for CYLOS and Zephos, who have complete control over the winds and the Wind Waker. Or maybe you see a different way that all of these elements connect. The point is that much like the whales and dragons of the history of Hyrule, I look forward to learning more about the froggy mythology of the other legends of Zelda. This video goes to some pretty absurd and out there places, and that's okay, that's what you're subscribed for, absurd Zelda theories, but if you want something a little bit more concrete, I highly recommend checking out the video we did over on Dr. Wily's channel about the Barbarian armor, which in Breath of the Wild is introduced to us as potentially being an old Zonai armor, but now we have Tears of the Kingdom, we know that the Zonai don't wear that kind of armor, so if you want to find out more about that, click the link at the top of the description, and be sure to subscribe for more absurd Zelda theories.